All right, Chris. It's good.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, man. It's good to see you. It's been a few weeks since we last recorded, and that's all because my son was on a school trip to Italy, and my wife and I went over to meet him at some point. We did some fun, just the two of us, and then we met him, and we spent another week there. Um, while I was there, all kinds of things that I saw. It's been 15, 16 years since I worked at Edelman, the world's largest PR firm, the world's largest independent owned agency, and ran their mobile program here in North America. But I did have to go to Europe a number of times while I was with them. And chip and pin technology with credit cards, right, was alive and well there. And it had just started here. It's just amazing to me that every single business, large and small now, has a standard cash register, but also has a small little device that allows you to pay with your phone or with your credit card and never have to enter a PIN number, never have to do anything else, and works faster, cleaner, just more efficiently than anything I've seen in the United States. It was pretty amazing to see the proliferation of that. You know, and I say any business, cab drivers,
Yep.
anything that you needed, right? Um, and uh, and how when you ride the trains, the same way you can bump your phone against the guy looking for tickets, or you have a QR code on your screen that he can scan real quick. It's the frictionless future. This um,
It's upon us.
it's upon us. It really
Yeah.
is. And a lot of people are trying to act like AI is the thing that's enabling this, but there are technologies that have been around for many years that once they proliferate, right? Um, they make a huge difference in our everyday lives and in business. And I think about that in terms of maybe how fast or how slow other parts of the world live. And here I am saying Europe versus the United States when it came to chip and pin technology, obviously. But the United States, while I was in India, a lot was made about President Trump's announcement to have a formal stance on AI and AI
Yeah.
policy, and um, in a JFK, we got to go to the moon. These things we do these things because not because they're easy, but because they need to be done or because they're hard, right? And
Hard.
hard, yeah. And
Well, it goes to the question from our guest today. It's going to be Trudy Hardy, just former CMO of BMW Group, and she was president of North America BMW Motorcycle Division. We're going to get into all that and like how do not from the country standpoint, but how do individual OEMs and how do we begin to tackle this within automotive, especially the data and the AI aspects on it. And how do we go to market? She's going to be a great guest to be able to talk to that. She recently retired, so we got her right off of a 25-year stint essentially with BMW.
right.
But what a great voice she's going to have in our conversation. Is I can't wait for it. It's going to be great.
Well, you bet. And because she's retired, she'll say anything she wants to say, I hope. But
That's only if she's going to unretire herself at some point. You got to be careful, but
totally,
no,
totally. Yes.
you're not going to have someone with the breadth of experience and just overall know-how on how it gets done. For she led BMW for God's sakes for 6 or 7 years as the CMO. Like, wow, that's one of the greatest brands in the world, and you get to you get to run that entire place. And she's a motorcycle lady too, so she had all that time running Motorrad and the motorcycle division in North America. Wow, she's gonna bring such a great insight down working with the dealers. She understands it all the way through, and wow, going to be a great conversation.
Excellent. Well, I'm super excited to have Trudy with us here today. And, Chris, the other thing that happened while I was in Europe, just to add to this, but I think it's apropos, is how fast the world is changing right now because of data, because of AI, and because of changing consumer expectations. Tip of the hat. And, just the global respect and fandom of a number of people who passed just in the last 2 weeks. But Ozzy Osbourne, who just 2 weeks ago, as if he knew it was coming, right, and played that show that he did. Um, it's
Yep.
how fast things are changing. It's not going off the rails quite yet, but it certainly is a crazy train, is it not?
It is definitely a crazy train. Let's start it up.
And it's going to be great. And without wasting any more of our time here, Trudy Hardy is here with us, and really excited. Trudy, thank you for being here. Uh, Chris, why don't you kick us off, and or Trudy, tell us a little bit about where you are, what you're doing right now. I know you got some exciting travel planned. If just kind of help us understand a little bit more about Trudy today and what you're doing.
I do. I mean, you know from my background that I'm an avid motorcycle enthusiast, and I'm really looking forward to a 2-week trip through the national parks this summer with a girlfriend of mine. We started our yearly adventure last year with the coast of California, and we are back for another summer adventure through the national parks, starting in Colorado, going into Utah, up into ending our journey in Sturgis, South Dakota. So great experience coming up over the next couple weeks.
Excellent. I mean, Sturgis is where a lot of motorcycles end up, at least rightfully so. It's a time to hop off the horse and grab a beer in Sturgis all the time, right? Yeah,
I've been there for the last 6 years, so I'm actually pleased to say that I won't be there during the rally this year, but
exactly.
I've had
Exactly.
plenty of experience, lots of photos, and lots of good stories. But we'll end our adventure there after the rally's over. Low
That's
private.
fantastic. Well, and you may know, I just returned from Italy, and a good friend of mine who used to work for the State Department, who lives there in Prati, in the Prati area of Rome, has a GS, has a BMW GS, and over dinner 5 nights ago, he convinced me for my 55th birthday that that's what we're going to do. Is I'm coming over. He's going to get a GS for me, and we're going to ride all over Europe that summer. So I'm all about building the annuities like you and your girlfriend have. I'm also all about finding those extremely efficient opportunities to go explore the world on two wheels. I
Well,
mean,
that's great because
yeah.
it costs a lot to get your bike transported there. So if you have the opportunity, I think you should take it.
I am not. I am not gonna. I don't. I don't trailer my bike a lot here, but I'm not gonna put it on a boat and send it over there either. Yeah.
You and me both.
We spent how many years did you spend as president of North America for the motorcycle division?
It was 6 years, 2019 until January of 2025. So have to say, was a great experience, but it's really dynamically different than the automotive business, which was an adjustment for me coming from BMW car side for 20 years before that. And, you enter in the world of power sports, you enter into the world of multi-line dealers for the most part. The margins aren't quite the same. It's not the same amount of standalone dealers. So you're dealing with what I call premium multi-lines, but also hardcore power sports where your premium products are right next to Honda generators and Sea-Doos and, other types of hobby and leisure power sports vehicles as well. So it was just an interesting change for me.
Well, it was definitely. I remember the days of doing co-op back for Motorrad and for Mini and BMW back in the day where we met briefly before your rocket to stardom as CMO. So we're just happy to have you here. What a great honor to work with you in this conversation and kind of get into this conversation on retail marketing. We'd really love to dive a little deeper into the challenges that are out there between the OEM and the dealer. Tim and I talk a lot about customer data and how that's beginning to affect the AI market, and how that all comes together, or data and marketing and agencies and media spend and all that kind of comes together for the dealer, or in between the dealer and the OEM. What are your thoughts on how that's beginning to play out? Like today, we're seeing all sorts of movements now towards AI and marketing automation and CDPs. Now you were over on the motorrad or the motorcycle side, but thinking back into a CMO on the automobile side, how do you see that kind of playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a super exciting time to be right here on this cusp of what AI is doing to our industry. I would say it's dynamically different between the car side and the motorcycle side, and I'll try to explain that in a very very brief fashion. I mean, from my years as a CMO, I think making sure that you are creating this relationship of trust with the dealer organization. You have different levels of marketing sophistication, from big dealer groups down to smaller, standalone mom and pop type stores. So for the OEM, it's challenging because you're trying to streamline, right, your activity, but you're also trying to cater to a variety of levels of marketing sophistication, some of which have employ external agency partners, and others that really just do the basic blocking and tackling internally for their own store. So I think it's a really, really unique opportunity that's going to help in a lot of ways, that you are using technology today to try to advance all levels of the dealer body and the dealer organization. But on the motorcycle side, you add one more layer of complexity, and that is multiple franchises under one roof. I have to
Yep.
make sure to build trust with them in why promoting BMW over the other lines that they carry under that same roof. So slightly different challenges when it comes to the motorcycle side.
And how does the OEM think about like the technology stack there? You talked about working together with that dealer and the challenges that kind of go back and forth when you're considering 50 or 10, 100, all the different kinds of tech stacks that are out there, the different technologies, who's best in class, what the dealer can afford, what makes sense for the dealer, give them a choice. How does the OEM kind of approach that? Because in the conversations that we have with dealers, it's the dealers want to make their own choice. They want to make their own decision based on what they see, and sometimes that they can see the new technology, sometimes that they're limited on the choices that they can make because of certified programs that might be out there. But how does the OEM try to put your arms around an entire dealer body and come up with the best solution for everyone, across the gamut?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. As we touched on before, there are so many intricacies of how to handle such a wide variety of dealers across your organization. So it's a multi-layered approach. We want to give them freedom. We want to make sure you create the rules for the 20% that kind of go off track, and not the 80% that are doing the right thing. And, so you've got to create a system that does help give that freedom, but also keep some guardrails out there. And I think, help them as much as possible to try to inform them of what's working and what's not working, and where we see trends and where we see, kind of the media landscape evolving, and really help them and coach them toward that as trusted partners. But there are also some dealers that need some basic hand holding, that
Some
need
extra help.
corporate identity help, making sure that they're just abiding by the right corporate identity. And a lot of times the mishaps aren't intentional. They're just oversights. So I really am excited about some of the things that are, coming out today that can help advance that, speed that up, give us greater flexibility, speed to market, and really hopefully start to inform us of, what ads are working, what copy line is working, what product is working, what offer is working. And I think that is, that's the dilemma we've all been facing, is that lack of transparency of what is really driving leads and ultimately driving sales. I mean, that's what we're all here for, is to sell that next car, that next motorcycle.
I mean, you nail it right there, Trudy. I mean, I think the interdependent relationship between trust and transparency, or transparency enabling trust, and even better, to the point you just made about attribution, and ensuring that there's transparency when we look at attribution, because not only does the dealer need to know in terms of any investment they make in communication, media or otherwise, but anything that's being supported by the OEM. And so it's a two-way street. I think the dealers need to know what's working for the OEM and what's not. And are there signals that the OEM is capturing that can be shared down at that dealer level, even those that are disparate groups, as you were mentioning before, right? That there's mega groups, and then even inside mega groups, you have smaller stores that are not quite as fortified in terms of technology, or to the point you made, are lacking in digital literacy, or certain types of protocols around brand guidelines and things like that. So these are exciting times. I think the thing that I always like to talk about, and Chris and I we get excited on LinkedIn every once in a while seeing people talk about AI, and it's not about AI doing things for us just to make our jobs easier, but at the end of the day, it's about elevating the customer experience. It's about elevating the brand trust. So I mean, when you said you see some things you're excited about, is there anything particular that you've heard about or that you're seeing that that are perhaps alleviating or addressing some of the things that you think are opportunities?
Well, I'll give you an example. I was at an industry conference a few months ago, and there was an agency that took the stage that actually was developing a creative agency based on solely use of AI with very limited, I would say, human
Human.
resources. And that scares a lot of people, that AI can be replacing, the people in our business. And he was really, really good at explaining the differences and the dynamics about how it's helping him redeploy people in different ways, and using AI. I mean, it's here and it's changing the way we do business. I mean, so quickly. I'm afraid, having retired in January, that if I don't keep on top of it, I'm quickly going to fall behind. But that it's allowing him to service his clients faster. It's allowing him to take the heavy lifting of some of the day-to-day tasks, and allowing his people to work, more forward thinking, more strategically on things. And I think that's really where we all need to be looking, because otherwise you will be very, very quickly left behind. And we all know that it's a race to leapfrog our competitors. So I think it's just a really interesting time to see how many OEMs will jump on board with new platforms and new technologies to leapfrog their competitors, because this generation and this time that we have of extremely targeted advertising. We've got programmatic and endemic both, but it's a really, really interesting time to be able to get out there and leapfrog your competitors. So
Leapfrog,
you know,
leapfrog. I'm gonna borrow leapfrog because
no
that's
problem.
no, but that's exactly what it is. There will be those that are left behind. They will be leaped for sure. Go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, they
And
will.
there are, when you look back, there's several OEMs right now that are are in a challenge, right? They're having a tough time, tough go at it, and a lot of them are trying to recreate themselves, right? They're trying to move quickly to, whether it's getting their inventory in the right place and getting their product in the right place, being able to remessage themselves. It's those kinds of OEMs, I think, that have the best chance. So they know that their back is up against the wall. They need to take one of those opportunities, and it's going to be the leadership that happens, at the top that really pushes this through, because there's so much of it's so much of a challenge for people to make change. To your point, and a lot of kind of the people that are doing it day to day, at the end of every week they have something that they have to accomplish, and the big picture sometimes gets lost. So I think like a Nissan or a Stellantis, and certainly even a Volvo in some situations where they have opportunities now to do that leapfrog chance, where here it is. Here's the challenge. This is how we meet. How do you think? Not specifically talking about those OEMs, but is that kind of where your head was going?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'll generalize it, that it's really hard to make change, especially within big corporate organizations, and especially when it comes to shifting roles and responsibilities of the people within it. It takes time. So those that will be able to react to that change the fastest, I think, will win. Change is also difficult on people. I think you'll see a willingness to leapfrog our competitors, and it starts, at the top, and we always want to be the ones that are, out in front, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's our product itself. But getting there is really the challenge. And I think also where a lot of the marketing management sits, you're dealing with middle level management that, that those changes, they're not that receptive to change, and it's difficult. And I'm going to be honest, we build relationships with people, we build relationships with agency partners and vendors, and those ties are hard to break, and they are, it's hard to make those changes. The bigger the OEM, usually the more complex the processes are within it, generally speaking. But I think those
Naturally.
that are able to do it are going to be the ones that come out in front.
The amount of money is what always drives me. I talk a lot about tier 3 and tier 3 retail marketing and that co-op budget. There's $6 billion right now within the US market. That's just tier 3. Half of that's essentially coming from the OEM. The other half is coming as a co-op, co-spend from the dealers themselves. And I struggle to think that we're going to be in the same place today that we are, in 6 months or even 12 months. I see it as a freight train that's gonna hit us, in terms of someone's going to make that jump, right? Someone's going to leap, and then it's just going to fill in the vacuum behind it, because once someone effectively launches an AI marketing automation, or once we're able to say, hey, I can see the performance of tier 3 ads, let's say, and we want to see in real time, how do we improve that? And there's an AI function that comes in and says, hey, I'm going to switch this image out with that image, because it's an AI A/B testing in real time, right? Once you get to that situation, which is not far away, like it is here, but let's say it's practically here in 6 or 12 months, that changes everything about how we think from a strategy standpoint, how agencies deploy, the relationship between the OEM and the dealer, and where the money is and where the data is. Who are we targeting? What are we targeting with the message? How does that go back and forth between the OEM and the dealer? I think it's right. It's about to smack us in the face. And if we're not ready for it, then we're going to be down on the canvas.
Well, as you said, the technology is here today. I would say here's the positive thing. Dealers and OEMs, we all have the best intention, right? We all want our advertising to work. We're all trying our best to deliver great results. So I think that no one is doing anything you know, out of any kind of negligence, so to speak, right? We
Right.
all have the best of intentions. The technology is archaic that, you know, that
Yeah,
we're sitting on inside of the OEM structure, and change is difficult. You know, we set up processes, we set up infrastructure, we set up all of these IT systems, and I think just like our manufacturing processes, our marketing prowess also needs to become that flexible to change every couple of months and not every 3 to 5 years with a vendor RFP, because
that's it.
otherwise you're going to get left behind. So we have to figure out how to do this without, you know, building so much into the IT data infrastructure that it's just lethargic. It's so difficult to change quickly. So I think that's what we need to keep in mind as OEMs, and how we pass that on, you know, to our dealers who by the way I feel sorry for, because they're trying to deal with 7 different OEMs perhaps under their franchised family, and people
Yeah.
using, you know, different providers and different vendors. But you know, again, I agree with you, Chris. I think once you know, once a couple OEMs leapfrog, the others will quickly fall in line.
Um,
Well,
I, I was just going one last thing, Tim, on this. I wasn't even thinking, but it's so true. Is that when you call it the franchise family? It's one of those, you know, redheaded stepchild and the drunk uncle on the side at Thanksgiving. Sometimes the relationship that goes back and forth between brands within a dealer group, right? You could have a Ford and a Stellantis and a GM and a BMW and a Mercedes and you know, a Polestar all under the same roof, and they
Yeah.
all those OEMs have a different philosophy of how to work with the dealers, the technologies that are there. So not only are we talking about solving the problem, but it's solving the problem times 7 in many cases, or times 15, as we really look at it across as an industry.
And not to mention the dealer groups, the Penske's, the AutoNations, the Group Ones, who have some of their own, you know,
Own
supplier
technologies on top. Yeah.
partners that layer on top, and they don't want to change because they don't want. Are you guys still there?
We're
yes.
still here.
Oh shoot! I You just dropped off the screen there for.
Can
Okay,
you
you're
hear
back.
us?
Sorry, my screen blacked out for 1 second, so I
We'll
apologize.
edit that out. Don't worry.
I will just restate that for those dealer groups that have their own, you know, vendors, partners, and their own sets of systems and you know, internal infrastructures, it just adds another layer of complexity out there.
It does. It does. I mean, in you know, to what you just said about the layering of technology is this jam, right? That was the very natural. Everybody will hire blank IBM, Salesforce, AWS because you can't get fired, right? Um, and doing that through a arduous and lengthy RFP process is time that business doesn't have today. It just doesn't. And a lot of folks who've been around for it's a really I'm not trying to be ageist at all here because I fall in the category myself, but it's looking at folks that have been in business for 20, 25 years, and they've had a way of operating to the points that Chris was making earlier about freight trains and you know, that relationship between agencies and dealers and OEMs. I mean, there's been a really comfortable way that everyone has learned to operate, and now we're dealing with all kinds of fast and accelerated forces that many can be used for good. Many of them can be used to make operations more efficient, to reduce our operating costs, to build that transparency and that trust between all of the constituents that are involved here: customer, dealer, OEM, supplier.
But
You know,
Tim,
yeah,
you missed one word, and this goes back to where Trudy was kind of talking. It's unproven too, right? So there's a lot there's a lot riding on these decisions. And
Correct.
I think that ends up being, we've seen it on CDPs, right? Even something as basic as just organizing the slow walk to get there. By the time someone comes in for an RFP for a Salesforce or for a Telium or for, a Treasury, any of the main players, 6 months down the line is normal for an RFP like that. Geez, the technology has changed. The use case has changed, right? For the OEM, for the dealer group, for the dealer. So it's a scary place to be. Plus, you're on the precipice of God knows what, right? We
That's
we
it.
don't know. I heard, I was saying to my son last night. I heard a quote. I think it was 30 years from Elon Musk. And he was saying, if we're not producing, because it was around his $30 trillion market cap for Tesla. He said, if in 30 years we're not producing 1 billion Optimus, right? Isn't that the name of it? Optimus,
Optimus.
his robots. If they're not producing 1 billion of them a year, he's like, I think we're crazy. Like, I think that's where it's going to be. So, like, my goodness, that's only 1/60th of the time it takes to do an RFP for Salesforce.
And 1/10 of the price.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. No, I mean but it's that kind of talk though that is rooted in um, the rut and comfort of how business was done, how technology came to market over the last, to be generous, 10 years, not to mention when you get into the 2030 range.
Yeah.
So, I think of Optimus. No, I don't want to digress into robots, but um, we're getting wrapped up into the tooling of building a robot. Think about that along the same terms of RFPs for large database type architecture.
Right.
My goodness, the form factor is going to change. I mean, it's this morning I went to the grocery store and I had prepaid for all my stuff. It was waiting for me in a bag. I was in the grocery store for maybe 32 seconds. No, make it 40 because I grabbed a bottle of water out of the cooler, right? But there was that, and then I had some money. I had a currency exchange issue at the bank, and I still had some cash that I had brought back, some U.S. cash that I brought back from Italy with me. Swung by the bank and went into the bank, and the bank told me real quick, it's like, listen, next time you do this, just do it at the ATM. You can do it in half the time. I mean,
Wow.
the form factor of our experiences rather than the form factor of our devices is is the thing that I don't think too many people, and again, I think it's natural, are thinking about when they're making the capital investment or even just trying to put together the capital budgets to invest in terms of uh, new technology and the new operational efficiency they are so confident it's going to provide. So at the end of the day, I want to go back to leapfrog. I keep that, just that idea of leapfrogging, Trudy, is um, I in leapfrogs and freight trains. I'm looking at you guys right to left there. Yeah, it's where we are right now, and to the point you just made, Chris. Nobody knows where this is going to head or what's next, but we do know it's going to be a hell of a lot different because of all the change that's happening in the world already, and because people don't, to be Shakespearean, if they don't respect that the past is prologue, that there are things that have already changed, and most of us just have become benign to it, right? It just became life, right? I mean, there's a lot that's happened with technology. There's a lot that's happened with public policy that we sure were up in arms. We were excited about the new technology or we were protesting in the streets when the public policy first came out. And now today, we're about our merry way and we're pretty comfortable. Um,
What does that look like,
that's going to be very
Trudy?
different. That's going to be very
Yeah.
different. Don't you think, Trudy? That's going to be very different now that we're talking about the businesses unto themselves making or not making the right decisions in terms of, I don't want to call it digital transformation, but just staying with the times. right?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to a word you used that I liked, and that was comfort. And I think that that's probably a better word of we, as businesses, I will say, become comfortable with some of the solutions that we have. And I would also say, you were referring to the demographic profile of being comfortable with something and not changing something. And I think that that also plays a role. And if we think about OEMs today, and I mean, I'm one that was there for 25 years. I was in the CMO role for 7 years. And to me, there's advantages also to that we can see changes through. So, there's pros and cons to maybe the younger generation today that's going to grow up, they're digital natives. I'm a digital immigrant, right? But they're digital natives. So they've grown up with technology right at their fingertips from when they were young. And it'll be interesting to see as they grow through the leadership, if that also drives, their business decisions differently. I mean, if I look around the OEM world and I look at, sorry, just, stereotypically our executive leadership across the industry and the age demographic, it'll be interesting to see when our digital natives start to rise up through the ranks into the C suites of the OEMs, if it
That's it.
also drives behavior differently and more quickly, and if we're more, adept to some of these changes and willingness to leapfrog, because I still think we still have some stagnant, I would say changes across our OEMs and across our talent pool, and we need to see that change as well.
Yeah, I think we're really looking at a phenomenal time,
Yeah.
right? There's something's going to happen, and every one of the OEMs, even at the dealers, it's an evolutionary opportunity here to be able to kind of remake ourselves using the technology. We're going to be pushed to do it, and I think that's a lot of what Tim and I talk about on the data side, right? Just trying to figure out how to communicate best with the customer, how to incorporate that into a normal lifestyle where you're not being intrusive and you're playing into their own interests, their own channels, their opt-ins. That from a marketing standpoint, like from the OEM's view of that, and then how it plays in with the dealer. How do you see the transparency play coming here? Because we continue to move closer, right? The data exchanges are getting closer between the dealer and the OEM. The media buying is getting closer. The messaging is getting closer. No one wants to say it, but are we getting to the point where, if not direct to consumer, there is a paralleled synergy hand in hand dealer OEM world, a tier one and tier three world that come together? Do you see that in the near future, or do you see two parallels that's maybe as they grow closer, they're still parallel from tier one and tier two, or do you think it's coming together?
I think it's coming together, but here's what I'll say. I'm going to go back probably 15 years ago when I was on the stage talking about, digital transformation and how, you could then track clicks to engagement to seeing people go through the funnel. And one of my big fears at the time were that everyone wanted to try to reverse engineer the funnel. If you know how many people, engaged here and clicked here, then you know how many impressions you need, you know where to buy. And it's not quite that scientific, right? And my biggest fear at the time is we were going to lose sight of tier one. We were going to be so consumed with lead, and a very KPI driven world, which I believe we need. And it's becoming more so that way. I was fighting to not lose sight. So my goal at the time was to say, listen, 80% needs to be tried and true. And you need to, kind of make sure you're keeping the lights on with what you know, and you need 20% to try that next big thing. And and then your risks aren't that big. And I don't even know if my proportions or the percentage application is even right today. I might choose a bigger part of the pie to be risky with, to try new things. But if we go back to your point, Chris, about the billions of dollars that sits in tier 3 and the little amount of money we invest in new technology there,
Right.
that's a no-brainer. So if you could take your 20 or 30% and invest it in new technology that helps steer that billion-dollar business, that's transformative for
Well,
me.
and it's super logical in that vein of transformation, or of just change. Just just hey, we have to change, but we have to prove what we need to change to, right? Which is what we're talking about here.
I think
Is
the appetite's there and from the dealers. I
I
would say there, you know what I mean? We all want to see ads and marketing investments that work and return on our investment.
well,
And I think that the appetite is there.
well,
Yeah.
in the comfort you would have on the programmatic side with the demand side platform, the comfort that you would have with Meta directly or indirectly, and Google or Alphabet indirectly or directly. When I say those three buckets out loud, that is where
Yeah.
a good 50, 60 plus percent of the budget has gone when it comes to customer experience, when it comes to marketing communications. So using your numbers, I'm just trying to I'm giving you some assurance here that the 20 to 30% you're talking about on a good day, it's half, right?
Right.
Take a half of what lacks in terms of transparency and attribution right now. Take half of it because it's proving that it doesn't always work, and let's go try these other things. Let's do what we can, and let's find vendors to a point we've been talking about here for the last 13 minutes. Let's find vendors who aren't just doing straight line RFP proposal work order type delivery, but they're actually listening to the exact use cases that we have, the ones that we need to make happen in the first 90 days, the ones we need to have happen in the next 2 quarters, and build a plan around that so that we can iterate and learn something new, perhaps build new comforts as
Mhm.
we're building, to this new efficiency or these new operations with technology, or better yet, business processes enabled by technology. So it's it's a this is sea change. This is earthquake level. And
Yeah.
this isn't these aren't earthquakes that last 32 seconds and rattle all the dishes off the shelf. These are earthquakes that I think are going to create huge fissures, right? In terms of not just the existing incumbent, but rocket fuel for
Huge
the
opportunities,
huge
really.
opportunities for
Yeah.
what people would categorize as startup, but really aren't, are just solid business plans built around solid technology plans.
And if you're a large OEM that by nature, it might take you some time to make, big changes from within. You sure as hell better surround yourself with companies that have that ability from a structure perspective, a technology perspective to help you catapult into the future. Because, like I said, there's, it takes a lot sometimes to turn those big ships. Right. So we need to surround ourselves with partners that one, encourage us to leapfrog and have the technology and the structural ability to help us leapfrog, because it takes a long time for us to do that within the OEM landscape.
Do you see as this all converges, is there something important that the OEM should be thinking about? Is it a better relations scenario with the dealer? Should they be, working in concert with their dealer councils? Or should they be bringing in their partner agencies to have these kinds of larger conversations? Like, how do you begin to actually tackle a problem like Maria here, right? Like, what do we really do from a strategy standpoint to put our arms around, again, not just the dealers, but now we're spreading our arms a little wider with the agencies and the delivery and the technology stacks. And that's a large seminar group now that we have to really start thinking about and gathering to effectively manage this change, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big therapy group. Sounds like you, the way you just worded it. No, but I mean, it's listen,
Might have to do
mindset
it at the bar.
mindset shift takes time. And that's, I think, what, probably that's where these two divergent worlds are coming together, because technology is changing so quickly, but mindsets, it takes a little bit longer to shift mindset. And I think if we can start to reiterate the notion that change is necessary, to change is good. Change
Yeah.
is really, change is a good thing and not a necessary evil to advance your business, or, and I think that that's the mindset shift that needs to happen. And of course, it's, we all get disappointed that we can't change mindset quicker, or maybe don't have the platforms to do that. But I think you're right. It starts with your dealer councils, and it rolls out from there to your larger dealer audiences. But I think that like we said earlier, the time is now. I think that, we are ripe to new forms of technology and AI based, advancements that we all dabble in, but we need to immerse ourselves in. So I think that the time is now, and I think that the dealers are also starting to see that.
I agree.
I
I
agree.
was again having that conversation with my son. We were talking about A/B testing. He was like, "Well, what's A/B testing?" And I was like, "Well, A/B testing doesn't even exist anymore. I bet, because the AI is going to take that."
We
And
do it.
that
Yeah.
I was in a conversation just a couple of days ago about this. I was just like, "Wow, that entire concept that we've had for the last 20 years in marketing can quickly be not just A B, but A B C D E F G A, right? It can do all of the changes, show that stuff in real time. It's well beyond marketing automation. That's the kind of stuff that I get really excited about. And
I was
what,
going to say, how awesome is that? I
yeah,
mean, that is what needs to be embraced. Like that is the gold that you can, that's at your fingertips right now.
That's
But
it.
when you go back to BMW and you say 300 or 400 dealers, right, that are out there, and they're putting out, 100 campaigns a year, all of a sudden you have 30 or 40 or 50,000 ads
for
that
sure,
are in market every year.
Right.
easily.
And 25% of them really stink, right? Just in general. But if we can begin an optimization, the technology's there now, I'll tell you.
It is.
Connect that AI optimization, all of a sudden that spend that right now is not performing, that gets bumped up into a place where all of a sudden everything is performing at an optimal level. And as sad as it may be, it takes the marketer out of it, but it allows it to be driven by data and performance, which is where we should be, spending our time and our money, is optimizing performance in this entire conversation.
Right. Well, I think I think you're right, Chris. But I think it's a point that was made earlier when Trudy was talking about being at an event and someone getting up and talking about autonomous agents running the entire show. And
Yeah.
um, we have to be very careful here that the real, when it comes down to trust, when it comes down to empathy, when it comes down to something that I haven't heard us talk a lot on this episode today about, but building lifetime value, right? Building, making sure that the people that are riding our bikes today, or are driving our vehicles today, they come back and they buy another one from us, whether that's for their spouse or their children or for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's been lost because we have optimized. And here's, I'm gonna throw it out there right now. Most people, I think, vendors and the dealers and the OEMs alike, are so wrapped up right now in influencing the top of the funnel consideration and getting that net unknown, or that intent signal from an unknown audience to target them and to then influence them, that they're missing what's right under their nose in terms of the data that is 5 years old, 10 years old, 18 months old, that can actually tell you what you need to do from the people who've already opened their wallet and already trust you. I don't see AI today. I still haven't seen AI yet that gets into that type of operation, that really gets into understanding the value, and better yet, the preferences and needs of people that already subscribe to our content, that already have transacted with us. And that right there is I think, talk about a leapfrog opportunity. Talk about an opportunity for someone to say, I'll reallocate 20% of my Meta budget to this right here, is instead of what Meta's telling me as an audience is ready, I'm just going to go and say, hey, I know from the information I have right now who I should be reaching out to. And I know some human ways to do it, right? And human ways to me are not just phone calls or email, but they could be direct mail. They could be out of home. It could be billboards. There could be other things, right? And that's the other thing too. When we talk about technology, we talk about AI. Is we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
True.
There are a number of things in terms of media, in terms of communications, that were just the way it was and the only way it was 30, 40 years ago.
The handwritten note certainly
And
works.
the handwritten note still works, right? I mean, it's just that. Yeah,
Well, and you danced around a bigger pot of money there, but think about the automation that you can put in marketing and communication side that would help you with the people side. I mean, there's still a people business in here, and our customers experiential marketing is also going to make a big difference. So imagine
absolutely.
if you can make your communication dollars work harder, more efficiently, so that you could actually spend more dollars where we've really lost a bit of that in terms of the experiences that set our brands apart. And I think that that's something that marketers also need to look at. If you can make your communication dollars spend harder, more transparent, see the results, reinvest what's not working, you can also take some, divert some of that wasted money and put it back into experiences that keep a customer for life. And we know that those experiences set our brands apart from others, and we're just seeing less and less of it in the marketplace. So I like that you brought that up.
Well, that's definitely the words of wisdom from a 7-year CMO at BMW, one of the greatest brands that you helped to build over that period of time. Doing it right straight off every time. BMW has been great in that delivery of the brand experience all the way through. I do want to at some point have a deeper conversation on where we get with autonomous driving and the ultimate
Blind.
driving machine. We got to figure out that part, but
Right. That sounds like
that's
a whole nother
that's
separate.
another episode right there.
that is especially when we factor the two-wheeled variety in the middle of that too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot to there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot that should never be foregone to the robots.
Yes,
Yeah,
I completely agree with that. Although I do love that the technology will help keep me safe. So that part of it I love, but we can't remember that kind of visceral, attachment that we have to the products we drive and or ride. So yeah, I'm looking forward
100%.
to sharing my riding episodes with you when I'm back.
I
excellent.
think we're going to have to do a podcast too on this one. There's a long way to go in this conversation. Trudy, thank you so much for the time spent. Great insights. You've been a great mentor and lead for all of us automotive marketing people for the many years. And just thanks so much for participating and being part of the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Great conversation. Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Be safe and ride free, as I
I
know you
will.
will. You
I
bet.
will. Thank you guys.
All righty.
Thanks very much.